about that. That was one of the first things I thought of when I saw that, because that, Whitwer has that connection to that, being directly involved in that game. So yeah, definitely, I can see that as a nod directly to the Force Unleashed, which was I think that was a fun game back in the day. That's what they need to re-release.
Right, right.
I
More
tell you,
games, more games.
more games, yeah, release more games like that. Make them available everywhere on every platform. I'll be happy. Replace some of those old games. But yeah, no, that's a great thing. And because Maul destroys the hyperdrive, of course, the ship falls out of hyperspace and is caught in the gravitational pull of this unknown planet, or nameless planet, we'll call it right now, because we don't know what it's called. And of course, that heightens the issues for Ahsoka and Rex, because now they have to figure out, now that not only do they need to figure out how to get past the clones, they have to get it. They're now under a time constraint because they're out of hyperdrive and the ship's about to crash.
Right, right.
So they make their way to the hangar bay, and of course they're in the control center above the hangar bay looking down. And they decide they're open up the exterior bay doors, and they start opening up the individual hangars on the side to locate the shuttle. And there's only one shuttle left on board this ship. I'm sorry, what's up with that?
No, I don't know. I don't
There
know.
should be a fleet of fighters on this ship. There should be several shuttles on board this ship. Where did they all go?
Yeah, I don't know that. Yeah, the shuttle, the gunships, right? That you see that we see in Old Friends Not Forgotten, as they go down to the surface of Mandalore, to Sundari, the capital city. You see the Republic gunships. Where are those? I remember that shuttle. Those shuttles have been in the Clone Wars since the very first season. But yeah, one lonely one. But what did you put several times in the notes here, that it raises the stakes and gets us even more nervous here.
Absolutely, it does, and that's definitely a stake raiser, because they only have the one ship to escape in. And as the rest of the bay doors open, the trap is sprung, and as the doors open, all these clone troopers come rushing out and flood the bay, standing between them and the shuttle. And right at the front of the pack is Jesse.
Oh, no. Oh.
And it is very intense moment, because he's like telling them not to, they have to come through us. Stand your ground, hold your position. They're going to leave. They're going to come through us. And this is where we get, some more of this Ahsoka and Rex time, because they now have to figure out a new plan. And Rex is like, so I guess we just have to fight through them? She's like, no, besides, I don't want, there's too many of them. Besides, I don't want to hurt them. And then this is where Rex gets very defensive at this point. He's like, I hate to tell you this, but they don't care. They want to kill us. They're ready to destroy us. This ship's going down. Those are my soldiers. They're my brothers. They're willing to die to take you out, take me out. They're not going to care if you don't want to hurt them. And of course, the whole time he's still standing there. He's got his helmet on, all his armor. And Ahsoka reaches up and pulls off his helmet. Where's she going to look him in the eyes? And she's like, and she talks to him, and she's like, you're a good soldier. Every one of those men down there are good soldiers, and they may be willing to die, but I'm not willing to kill them.
Yeah, she's not going to be the one to do it.
No, she's not. She's holding on to her convictions at this point. She's like, and Rex is like, well, at this point, do we just admit defeat and surrender? Because I don't see any other option. And that's when Ahsoka hatches a plan. And of course, she's going to use the droids to get it done.
I told you they're critical. If they don't have these droids, this is not happening.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's over if they don't have one. Um, and I like what she says. And they're talking about her plan. He's like, is it a good plan? And she's like, it's a good plan. I think.
Right.
It's perfect. Yeah, it works great. And of course, her plan is, of course, Rex comes out into the bay leading Ahsoka, and he's got her hands above her head. He's got his blaster on her, and he's telling her to hold your fire. I've got her in custody. And all the clones have their blasters triggered on them. And Jesse's telling her, you know what to do. Kill her. It's the order. We have to execute her now. If you don't, I will. And he's like, no, the order was to execute the Jedi for treason against the Republic. The problem is, and he's trying to reason with Jesse and try to plant seeds of doubt. He goes, the problem is she hasn't been a Jedi for a while. So killing her would be treason. And Jesse stands there, looks at him and goes, you know, you yourself, and this is where the discussion that they had at the beginning of the episode, of the last episode, kind of turns around and bites him in the butt, because he's like, you know, you're the one that said that she was on, it was a special order from Sidious to take her out, and it needs to be done. And Jesse's like, well, if you're not going to kill her, you're committing treason because you're not obeying Order 66, which means you're going to die. And you're going to get demoted from commander, and you'll be subject to execution, and we'll kill you along with Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka, about that time, the droids have gotten into place, and Ahsoka's like, whispers, are you ready? And I love Rex. Rex turns around, looks there and goes, yeah, it wasn't fun of being a commander anyway. Just simple old Rex at that point.
Yeah.
And at that point, the signal's given, and the droids drop the elevators, because there are multiple elevators throughout the landing bay, and a lot of the clones were standing on those elevators. So when they dropped the elevators, a lot of the clones disappeared. They all went to the below decks. And at that point, Maul sees his chance, so he takes off for the shuttle. And Ahsoka sees him, so she takes off after him. And we see Ahsoka and Maul go at it again. And Maul's like, you want chaos? How's this? And he's throwing all these boxes around and ends up getting to the shuttle and taking off. As they're taking off, Ahsoka, that's where you mentioned it earlier, Ahsoka grabs through the shuttle through the Force and is kind of holding it in place, trying to get it to come back down so they can make their escape. But while she's doing that, Rex is trying to cover her, and Rex winds up getting shot. And when Rex gets shot, that's when she realizes she can't hold it anymore. If they're going to survive, she has to let it go. So she lets it go and turns around and begins to defend Rex again. And with the blocking the shots with her sabers and so on. How did you feel about Maul's escape in this? Because he does live to fight another day.
Oh gosh. Well, I loved it. This is what we were talking about when we were in the last episode of Shattered, that he does provide just a great distraction with all the chaos, and allows Ahsoka time to figure out what's going on and help Rex. Here, it does turn around, like you said, Rex's speech to the guys after Order 66 comes back to bite him in the butt, and now Maul comes back here to bite Ahsoka's plan, in the butt here, and he gets away. We know we see him in Rebels, we see him in Solo, and so we know that he has to get away. But again, I find myself, nervous. I mean, I'm so, I'm into these characters, and so I'm enthralled. But I loved seeing him shoot away into hyperspace for more adventures to come for him. But um, and then it just immediately quickly turns, and now you're going, well, what's Ahsoka and Rex going to do here? And of course, that's when behind what Jesse and all these clones, you see some Y-wings hanging out in there, and so we know what the next goal is to get over to those.
Oh yeah, definitely. And these are some classic Y-wings there. So they go fighting to try to fight their way to them. And of course, the droids help them out by, at this point, raising the elevators back up and throwing all the clones back upstairs. But unfortunately, this is where our droids bite the dust at that point, because the clones find them, and Jesse orders their destruction. So they destroy the droids at that point, and the droids are no more. But they do work their way to the Y-wing, and Ahsoka who ends up force throwing Rex over to it, which I think caught him off guard, because that was pretty funny, because he kind of lets out a yell as he gets pushed. So that was pretty awesome. But this is where also Ahsoka gets hit a couple times and ends up losing one of her lightsabers at this point. And this one time she don't get it back.
Yeah.
And this, of course, this ship is going down. It starts it's entered the atmosphere, and the bridge crew fire the retro rockets to try to control everything, but it doesn't work. The bridge explodes, and they accelerate down, almost directly down toward the ground. And of course, you see at this point everybody's falling and flying, and Ahsoka's falling away, trying to maintain control, and she ends up falling out of the ship with the Y-wing, because the Y-wing winds up launching accidentally. And this is where all the free falling begins. This is where we begin to see, to me, it reminded me a little bit of the episode in Rebels where they lost the original Phantom, when Ezra's kind of running across and hanging there trying to survive, but Ahsoka's free falling, and she winds up trying to catch the Y-wing, and ultimately does catch it after a few nerve-wracking moments of dodging debris. She does end up safely in the Y-wing, and the ship, the cruiser, crashes.
Yeah.
And of course, at this point, the cruiser is destroyed, and this is where we see Ahsoka and Rex having their moment, honoring the clones that fell, even though they were trying to kill them. They still, they were their friends. By this point, they understand a little bit more about the inhibitor chip, I'm sure, so they understand that it wasn't necessarily their fault. And we see the burial area, and where they've buried some of them, and they got the sticks with the helmets on them, including Jesse's helmet. And it's a very moving moment. And Ahsoka's standing there. She's got this cloak on around her, and it's tattered and torn. And to me, it was very reminiscent of her cloak that we see her in the Rebels finale.
Yeah, agreed. I very much thought of that visual. Yes.
And visually, it was almost identical. Besides the tattered and torn edges of it, to me, it looked like that cloak. Obviously, it's a smaller one because she's a lot younger than she is at the end of Rebels. But yeah, it had that same visual representation. And Rex's, at this point, is loading supplies into the Y-wing, and Ahsoka's just kind of standing there staring at all of these helmets, and staring at Jesse's helmet and the Tano troopers and the regular 501st helmets, and they're just standing there looking at them, and you can see the heartbreak in